Welcome, everybody, to the Gives in the Bank recruiting podcast brought to you by BuckeyesScoop.com. I am Marc Givler, joined as always by Bill Greene. There is a lot going on right now. It's not been a very busy summer and early fall on the recruiting trail, but things are starting to happen. And that was very evident on Wednesday night here. Which one do you want to get into first, Bill? First, we had Ohio State lost a guy, and then now maybe getting a guy they wanted initially who's decommitted. I guess I'm a bad news first kind of guy. So first thing that happened, and this actually happened first last on Wednesday night, so we can kind of go into that. Four-star offensive lineman Blake Miller out of Strongsville, Ohio. I think everyone kind of thought he was just going to end up at Ohio State. He's looks like he's not committed to Clemson. Didn't tell a soul. No one had a crystal ball. No one had a future cast. No one came on our message board and said anything. It just out of nowhere, just boom, committed to Clemson. Ohio State loses a top in-state target. Your reaction to that?
And I have a great relationship with Blake's dad, Chris. I have a really good relationship with Blake. And I was blown away and surprised by that. Wasn't surprised that Clemson was in it. He'd been there before. There were people had talked, he's never visited there and all that. He had visited there before, really liked it a lot. But, with his dad graduating from Ohio State, Blake being a big Ohio State fan all his life, I assumed he was going to 8. And, maybe Ohio State should just stay out of Strongsville High School and not recruit their O-linemen. They lost J.D. Duplain from there a couple of years ago. And Blake grew up loving the Buckeyes, his parents huge Buckeye fans, and he's now headed to Clemson. And I do not think he's a kid that's going to flip back. He's just not that kind of kid. He's very serious, very thoughtful, and obviously you'll keep trying to recruit him, but man, I don't know about flipping that one back. So I kind of think, they sold him on what they've done with Jack Carman, what they've done with Matt Bockhorst, how well they fit in down there with the Colson, and he was down there and loved it. So, this one, he's choosing Clemson, which is one of the top programs in America. They win titles. It's not like J.D. Duplain choosing Michigan State. That one was just a killer. You couldn't understand. But this one, it kind of does make some sense. And, we'll see. But I would not expect him to flip back.
Yeah, you know him better than I do, but he does, I kind of have the same thought as he's a pretty serious kid. He's not a spotlight attention seeker. As he showed by not telling anybody he was going to pop for Clemson on Wednesday night. So yeah, I think that's going to be a tough one to get back. I don't think this is losing Jackson Carman from a talent perspective. I think Blake's a good player. I don't think Blake's like a nationally elite guy like a Jackson Carman was. But 0-2 at Strongsville, that's a little difficult to do. That's you should at least get 50-50, I think, at Strongsville. That's tough for me to kind of grasp, especially in the COVID landscape where it's not like kids are able to go out and like get blown away at other places on visits. You really have the advantage geographically in a time like this. How much we've talked about this a little bit before. How much of this do we put on stud? How much of this is just a kid wanting to do something different? Kind of what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't know how to wrap my head around this one, really. This is just a kid you should not lose. Grew up loving Ohio State. His parents went to Ohio State. He's not taking a ton of visits. You shouldn't lose this one. But, I think it's probably, it is what it is. And let's do Quinn Ewers, I think. We've seen this movie before. So I'm not surprised. I don't think you're surprised. And, on we go. Let's move on to Quinn Ewers.
All right. Yeah, let's do. I think everyone will be happy that we do that. So Texas loses the top quarterback in the nation, 2022 quarterback, Quinn Ewers. Maybe the number one player in the nation, depending who you ask.
Right.
It's looking good for Ohio State right now, actually there. Gosh, did you see this coming this quick? I mean, I think we all knew, like, hey, let's keep an eye on that, see how the Herman thing goes. But like, wow, it's out there now. It's happening. He's decommitted, and Ohio State is looking pretty good right now.
It's so funny because I actually recorded the Thursday Buckeye Morning Show with Tom Orr that Wednesday evening to be put out on Thursday morning. And I had gotten a text right before we started recording, look out for Quinn Ewers to decommit from Texas soon. Well, soon, I didn't think in the next 10 minutes. I thought in the next 10 days or a month. And, I used that on the podcast with Tom to look for a decommitment from Quinn Ewers coming at some point. Well, it was like 5 minutes later. We had just gotten done recording, and Tom sent me a text like, hey, it happened. And I'm like, what happened? What are you talking about? And they decommitted. So I kind of did have a heads up that was coming. I was also told that there's no way this kid is decommitting from his dream school, his home state school, unless he knows where he's going. And I think you and I both know where he's going, to Ohio State. They're going to get this kid, and huge win for Ryan Day, and one of the worst kicks in the private parts for Tom Herman. I mean, he didn't need that right now, but I mean, that goes hand in hand with top quality program on fire and what should be a top quality program that is not on fire, but is very cold and wet right now. So it is what it is, but huge get for Ohio State. You look at that room, what it potentially can be. I mean, I don't see how all these guys are not going to stay, but with Stroud, Miller, McCord, Ewers, I mean, that's unbelievable. Keep three of those guys, any three, and you're in compete for national titles. So huge move, for Ohio State, and I feel pretty strongly Quinn Ewers will be committing to Ohio State in the near future. And hopefully not before this podcast is over.
Yeah, well, I'll turn this right away. They definitely are in a good situation now. The portal has kind of changed everything with the quarterback position, and assuming they do land Ewers as we expect, that changes everything for them. You're no longer beholden to one kid in your program. I think so many of these programs are in a situation where, oh my goodness, if we lose this quarterback prospect from our pipeline, we are in total chaos. And Ohio State's going to have the luxury of not having to worry about that, where if someone does decide, they don't want to be there anymore, they've got, it's next man up, and they've got that pipeline is so strong right now. Which brings me to my next player, because I had started to cool on Caleb Burton a little bit to Ohio State. I knew they were still in it, but I had moved off they'll probably get him to, I kind of moved it back to, I don't think they lead anymore. I had tied him so closely to Ewers. So now we expect Ewers to go to Ohio State. I think that means they're going to get Caleb Burton. What do you think?
Yeah, I had Burton in my best guess list, a couple of weeks ago to Ohio State. I feel real good about the relationship there between Ryan Hartline, and I think this just locks it up. I think it's over. I think they would have got him without Ewers. This makes it all the more better and makes it a lot easier for everyone concerned. So, yeah, I think Burton equals Buckeye, as Nevada would say.
Yeah, it definitely looks really good there. I wasn't as convinced they were getting him. I thought if Ewers really pushed for him to go to Texas or something, or if it was going to be Oklahoma at one point, that was another school that was in it for Ewers. I thought that would be a tough pull for Ohio State. Maybe Burton would follow him to one of those schools. I kind of had the feeling they were going to play together, but now it's probably moot now. I mean, if Ewers is going to Ohio State, there's no reason to think they're not also going to get Burton. Which leads us into the other. I mean, you got Damani Jackson, you got Will Johnson, you got Twitter buzzing. I mean, how much of this is real and how much of this is teenagers kind of having fun with it, seeing the reactions and the momentum and everything? And, kind of where do you put it with some of these fringe guys who maybe haven't been at the forefront, but are starting to now, Zach Rice is out there now, like how, on kind of hinting at things. How much of that is real? How much of that is just guys having fun right now?
I think a little bit of both. And, for Ohio State, I mean, to be in the Monty Jackson, I mean, looks like they're in pretty good shape. I wouldn't call him as strongly to Ohio State as I would have Ewers and Burton. I think those guys are in, and I think they're getting them. Damani's still going to be a fight, and I think that's going to be a recruitment that we have with over the next year or longer. So good that he's interested, good that he knows what state Ohio State is in, but still some work to do there. Will Johnson, I think this is going to come down to Michigan's play on the field this year, and can this dad that, this is where you played, and that's all well and good, but are you going to develop my son for the NFL? And I think Michael Zordich, defensive back coach at Michigan, does a great job, and I think he's very well acted. So I think, the Johnsons have to look closely at that. But boy, Kerry Combs and what they've done at Ohio State, in the state of Michigan, with defensive backs in the NFL, I think Ohio State's going to be in that one. And I think that one, I don't think it'll be, I don't think it'll be easy, but Combs has won these battles before. So would not sell Ohio State short there. And, if Michigan's season flames out and those DBs are getting torched every week, I think that really opens it up Ohio State. So there's still some work to be done there and some room to go with Will Johnson, but they're in it, I believe.
I mean, what I think is happening right now, beyond Ewers and Burton, I think you have a lot of guys out there who are really considering Ohio State. I think all the kids, even the ones that I think are just having fun right now, I think they're all serious about Ohio State to some degree, where Ohio State's top 2 or 3 for these guys. I absolutely believe that. But I also believe there's some gamesmanship going. I think they're having fun with this right now. They see the reaction this is getting. And it's almost, it's kind of, I feel so old even using this reference. God, this movie was probably made decades before I was even born, but it's almost like they're giving cover to each other by doing this. So it's like, I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. It's like that. It's like, no, I'm next to commit. No, I'm the guy who's being rumored to be the next boom. And they're all just kind of doing that, I think, to kind of provide some cover to each other, so that in this crystal ball world where, the kids are starting to feel like all their commitments are ruined, that this keeps up the suspense of, you don't know who's coming next because it could be any of us type of thing. I think there's a lot of that going on right now, and that some of these kids may very well end up at Ohio State, but I don't think it's coming next week or anything like that. I think a lot of these guys could be battles moving forward. We talking maybe a few months or longer, maybe not so much next week or anything like that. But, that's part of the fun of this, and they're certainly having fun with it. I mean, God, even like Bobby Taylor Jr. was going on about, like, I don't even know if that's even a real thing right now. There were so many guys getting in on the act on Twitter and stuff. So they're trying to keep people guessing. Like I said, I feel great about Ewers and Burton. Would it shock me if they got a Will Johnson or a Damani Jackson soon? I would be a little surprised. I think on Jackson, I just feel like that one's got a ways to go, but who knows? They could get someone. They could, someone could get caught up in this and see the Ewers and Burton commitments and get super excited about it and kind of commit early. So, but we'll see. I think guys, like I said, I think guys are having fun with it right now, and we'll just kind of see where that takes us. A little 2021 to talk about. We can go Tristan Leigh first, I guess. Obviously, did not show up to the Buckeye Bash. We won't worry about the why and the how and the legitimacy of that or whatever. Just where do you have Tristan Leigh right now? I mean, we've kind of said they're running third, still running third. Is it a distant third? Kind of, what do you think?
I think it's a distant third. I've never had him in it. I've never had him as a possibility. Everything I've been told is that he likes to mess around a lot, but LSU is his school. I think Oklahoma's closing. I was told to watch out for Florida as a possible out of the picture, out of the blue shot. But I think Ohio State's in there with Akron and Mississippi Valley State and those schools. No chance. They're not getting Tristan. I mean, I've said that from day one. If they're wrong, I'll own it and swallow it. But, I don't think they're a healthy player in this at all. So to me, I've never bought it. never heard anything from anyone I trust that, hey, out here. Never have heard that.
Yeah. I continue to believe they're going to be third. I don't think he's going to make a visit. I know he's saying he might come back. I'm skeptical about that. I mean, maybe he would. It would certainly create a little suspense for his announcement if he did something like that in November or December. But I don't think that's probably gonna, I don't think that's going to come to fruition. My stance has been I think LSU, but if there is a surprise, I don't think it's going to be Ohio State. I think it's going to be Oklahoma because he is very close with Caleb Williams, and that would make sense.
Right.
Would want to protect his blind side the next 3 or 4 years. That would make some sense. I do think the best relationships are with the LSU staff, but again, with the quarterback thing, these quarterback lineman relationships, you never know. So Oklahoma would be the dark horse, if you want to call them that, or the non-popular pick. Although I think people are starting to I think some picks are starting to come in for Oklahoma actually today, but I just don't see Ohio State as a legitimate factor there. We'll wrap this up. Derrick Davis Jr., we are 9 days away from his announcement. He's going to announce on Saturday, November 7th. I think around 4:30 is the time they're shooting for. They got a banquet hall rented out, going to have a little gathering. He's going to make his decision. There's a top 5. It's Ohio State, Penn State, and then if you want to go super crazy wild card, LSU, where he's tentatively scheduled to drive through Baton Rouge on Saturday or this weekend. My guess is he's not going to do that. I don't know. I know they're keeping a very close eye on the weather. I mean, there's some hurricanes in the Gulf right now. I think that's making things a little more difficult even than it would be normally to get down there. So I don't expect that to happen. I don't expect him to do a Jaden Woodby and go to a school that he'd really never talked, hasn't really done much with, but just liked him growing up, kind of how Jaden did. I think Derrick's much more calculated than that. So really it's Ohio State or Penn State. I've kind of talked about where I stood, and I'll rehash that here in a minute, but Bill, what do you have there right now?
Yeah, kind of interesting, now that we are under one roof together, at Buckeye Scoop, my info right now is that it's Penn State. And, we've compared notes, and were we working at separate companies right now, I'll probably be pretty steadfast that it's going to be Penn State. And now that we've talked, I'm starting to come around that maybe you're in line on this one. And I'm kind of torn, because what I'm hearing from the Penn State people sounds really good to me and believable. But then when we compare notes and I hear what you're saying, it's like, I don't know. I think Marc might have this one. So I may be sitting this one out and just leave it up to you, because I think you're in good on this one. And I'm kind of torn right now, and we'll fully admit it that, one side of me, I want to believe the information I'm getting from people that have been really good to me in the past and pretty knowledgeable in the past. But on the other hand, I love what you're saying. I love where you're coming from. I love how, embedded you are with that family. So this might not be the bank this might be Sunday and the bank's going to be closed on this one. And we're going to put this one on Marc Givler, because I think you've got really good information here. I really do. I like what you said to me, privately, what you're saying publicly. And so I'm just going to probably throw this one and let you handle this one.
I don't particularly enjoy being out on an island on some of these. It doesn't even happen that often. It's really only happens once or twice a year at the most. I'm not usually out there like that. And, I've got lucky on a few over the years where this situation is, but it doesn't feel good when you're going against the grain and you're wrong. So we will see what happens. I would just say, I think if you listen to what Derrick has said about Ohio State over the last 2 years, it just feels like he talks about them differently than the other schools. Whereas with the other schools, it's always about tradition and the coaches and things like that. And yes, those things are important to him at Ohio, or with Ohio State, those things are important. But the life after football, the million person city, what that could mean for him after football. He wants to get into business. Some of the stuff he talks about specifically with like, the quarterbacks, he's mentioned to me the quarterbacks that Ohio State, and I'm not betraying Derrick's trust here. These are things he said to me in interviews. The quarterbacks that Ohio State's recruited that he would be facing in practice, and how kind of the iron sharpens iron, how that would prepare him. He doesn't say those things about the other schools. He just, and it's not like he couldn't. He could certainly say that about some of the other schools where they have recruited good quarterback, but it just, the tone just kind of shifts a little bit with Ohio State. It is driving distance, obviously, from Pittsburgh. Dad's from Ohio. There's a lot of comfort level with the school. He estimates he's been to Ohio State roughly 9 or 10 times. And if you're in the watch what they do, not what they say segment, he shows up at the Buckeye Bash. He showed up at remember their big summer thing last year where they had their, like, it was at elite, 15, 20 kids. Well, he was at that. So he's at all these things that all these other commits have been at. And I know he talks to Kyle McCord quite a bit. He's a quiet kid by nature, but he does talk to some of these Ohio State guys. So I think they got a better chance than people think. And we'll see. Let's get through the weekend here. Obviously, those two teams are playing each other on Saturday, so that's going to be interesting. And Derrick's got a playoff game on Friday, and then they're going to see about LSU and what they're going to do there. So we'll see. We'll see where things are at, Monday, Tuesday. But right now, my pick is still on Ohio State, and it's not necessarily a comfortable place to be in terms of, when you see everyone else has their picks on Penn State and things like that. It's not a great feeling on my end, but at the same time, it's an honest assessment of where I think I wouldn't be doing this just for the hell of it. So if I thought my information was more towards Penn State, then I would say it's Penn State, but that's not what I've got right now. So we will see what happens. Hopefully there's a lot more to talk about here in the coming days, because it sounds like things are really starting to pick up. So check out all of our stuff on BuckeyeScoop.com, and we'll see you next week for more recruiting action. It could be a busy week. Thanks, guys.